Meeting is being recorded.
All right. Okay. Welcome, everybody. I am so excited to have Yitzchak here with us today, author of Kosher Astrology. It has become my favorite book. I am completely in love with it. Thank you again so much for bringing this information to the world and to Judaism. It is so needed. I'm very, very happy that we're able to have you.
Thank you so much, Ayala. I really appreciate you doing this, and it's really fantastic. I'm very excited, very excited.
Thank you. So I just wanted to introduce myself to people who don't know who I am, introduce Yaakov, that's my son's name. I'm looking at it on the computer. Yitzchak here, and then we'll get started. So for anyone who is new, I am Ayala. I'm the founder of Okababy Company. I really fell in love with this book, Kosher Astrology, and I reached out to the amazing author, and he was so kind and generous enough to talk to us about parenting and kosher astrology. I'll tell you a little bit about Yitzchak. Yitzchak Aroush Pincus is a professional astrologer and the author of Kosher Astrology, a Jewish guide to celestial wisdom. If you have not yet got the book, you need to. He has been working with Torah-based method of astrology for over 15 years. His fascination with personal transformation led to extensive research in Jewish philosophy, psychology, and astrology. And you can get the book on Amazon or his website, kosherastro.com. And if anyone needs any links, you can reach out to myself or to Yitzchak. So let's introduce the topic, which I am so excited about. Hold on one second. I'm just going to admit a few more people here. 1 second. Okay, I'm just admitting everybody here. So let's introduce the topic. The topic is parenting and astrology, nurturing your child's unique gifts through their birth chart and astrology. And if anybody has any questions while we are doing the live Zoom, you can put them in the messages here in the chat. And then at the end, we'll be choosing a few questions for Yitzchak to answer, and then also be giving away a copy of his book to somebody who has asked one of the questions. So let's dive right in. Did you want to say anything before we start?
So, well, in terms of just astrology, just the concept, the big issue tends to be, is astrology kosher? Is it allowed? There's two big areas to learn about astrology, what actually it does. There's a lot of stereotypical thinking about what it does. And then there's the issue, is it allowed? Is it against the Torah? So, people are familiar. It says, Ein mazel Yisrael, that Jews are above the mazel. Or it says, Tamim tiel Hashem lekecha, you should be wholehearted with Hashem. And many think that means that you shouldn't use astrology. So the thing is, when people ask me, is astrology kosher? I like to respond with the same question, but with animals. Are animals kosher? Now, it's not a yes or no question, right? Because some animals, clearly the Torah is very, pig and shellfish are clearly forbidden in the Torah, while other animals are clearly kosher. We don't say, well, some animals are not kosher, so let's not eat any animals. As Jews, we are people of the book, and we study to see what is allowed and what's not allowed. So it's the same thing with astrology. There are forbidden forms of astrology, and that mostly has to do with, back in the day, idol worship. They used to treat the planets like they were false gods. And there was something called astral magic, where they would take all kinds of spells in order to serve the planet. Let's say Venus, they believed that Venus was a false god, so they would do all kinds of, take blood from animals and build different statues and do all kinds of spells at certain astrological times in order, hoping that Venus will, do something good for them or harm their enemies. Like they would take a metal like statue and then bury it with all these spells and bury it under their competitor, and supposedly then Venus would ruin the store of their competitor. So that was astral magic. So that the Torah was firmly against. It's idol worship, it involves sorcery. So that form of astrology is where you see all the really negative things in the Torah, is talking about idol worship. Then there was another form of fatalistic astrology. So for example, in Gemara and Shabbos, you have the Chaldeans, Shabbos 156 in the Talmud, where the Chaldeans, who were famed for their being astrologer, they told Rabbi Akiva that his daughter is going to die on the day of her wedding. That's the kind of astrology they would practice, very specific, predictive, fatalistic forms of astrology. And the whole Gemara is trying to show that that's not truth. That is not true. It was going against the culture of the time, that you have free will, you can channel astrology. And that is the kosher form of astrology. So that's the big distinction to understand. I go into a lot of detail in the book, and I go through all the different sources. I show clearly there's a distinction between not kosher astrology and kosher astrology. So that's step one. Step two is we're going to get into what is astrology.
Yes. The first part of your book just goes into all of this in such detail, and I was taking notes and highlighting it. It's absolutely fascinating. My guess, a quick question for you is, how did we as a nation lose this gift of astrology? Because in your book, in the first few chapters, it seemed that most Rabbanim were doing this. This was a very, very, very common thing, and we've lost the art or the talent or the knowledge of it. And it's written in all of our books how important it is and how we can use it. Even you had mentioned in your book that Abraham was the first astrologer, and he taught that to kings and nations that came to him. So how did we lose this when we kept things like lighting Shabbos candles or different things that are part of Judaism? This seemed like that was extremely important. So where did it go?
No, that's a fantastic question. So actually, our sages were really brilliant and had incredible foresight. Like, at the times of the destruction of the Beis Hamikdash, part of, they were working about the calendar, how to set up the calendar. And one of the things that they did is they figured that because we're going to be in exile and we're going to be persecuted, it's going to be very hard to really focus on the technical aspects and figuring everything out. So they simplified the Jewish calendar as simple as possible. And we have like an average, the Moled, the new moon every month. It's not exact, it's an average. Why? Because it's easier to calculate. And I think that's directly connected to astrology. There were different periods when astrology was very prevalent among the Jewish people, but because we were in exile and we were literally fighting for our survival throughout history, so astrology is a more complex thing. You have to do incredible amounts of calculations. So you had, when the Jews were at peace, so you have, like, for example, in Spain, like in the 1200s, 1300s, before the Spanish Inquisition, before it became really difficult, there was an explosion of astrology among different rabbis, and the Kabbalistic rabbis were very into astrology at that time. Or 1,000 years ago, Avram Bar Chia was a professional astrologer, Reb Shapsi Danilo was a professional astrologer. So you did have these periods in time where the Jewish people were very involved in astrology, but because you have to remember, today we have computers. So it's really easy to calculate a chart. Back in the day, you had to do everything by hand. You had to do incredible mathematical calculations. It took a lot of time. And so that was not something you can do if you're under incredible pressure. The anti-Semitism that we lived with, unfortunately, again, today it's popping up, but throughout our history. So I think that's the main reason why it kind of like faded in and out throughout history with the Jewish people.
That's so interesting. And it's interesting you're saying how now we have computers that can calculate all of this stuff much faster at the speed of light, that it took them days, weeks, a long time to put together a birth chart. So that kind of leads us into why we're here talking about birth charts. I was lucky enough to have my birth chart done by you and read by you and explained, and it was wonderful and so insightful. I really had such a wonderful experience, and I highly recommend if anybody is interested in having their birth chart looked at by a kosher astrologer to reach out to Yitzchak. I cried too. I thought it was just so beautiful. So I really appreciate that. But as a parent, it made me think like, okay, now I know my birth chart. I understand my strengths, my challenges, the different areas that I can improve in, or, when I'm acting a little bit here, or a little bit angry or a little frustrated, I can kind of see where, these things are innately born into me, these tendencies. And that made me think about our children. How I would love to know from you, we were going to dive into it, but first of all, where do we find this source that it is a mitzvah to learn our child's birth chart and help parent them through their birth chart?
So we have, there's the Vilna Gaon who lived in the 1700s, and he was one of the greatest Talmudic scholars of the last 250 years. He was a genius, and so he wrote many svarim, and he wrote one sefer on Mishlei, which was by Shlomo Melech, where in Mishlei it says, Chanach lenar al pi darko, raise each child according to their way. So the Vilna Gaon writes a whole piece about this, and he explains that you have to raise him according to his astrological nature, according to his birth chart, and because you can't force, this is who a person is. You can guide them, and he goes into detail about guiding them in the proper way within the way they were created, within their mazel, within their astrological birth chart, because if you try to force them to be something different, it won't take. You're only going to cause damage. So the Vilna Gaon is an incredible source stating that everybody should look at their child's astrological birth chart and raise them accordingly, and that is the meaning of Chanoch lenar pi darko.
Wow, I think that's so fascinating because that's nothing that I ever came across, ever learned, and the Vilna Gaon is such a looked up to rabbi in our teachings, and it's very interesting that he said that. I had literally never heard about that before, talking to you. So that was really fascinating. I guess maybe could you give us a brief explanation of the birth chart for a child? Like each planet, they have a sign. I know for me, it was very interesting that I learned that, for example, I'm a Leo, but that's my sun sign. So I was born in August 12th, and I'm a Leo, but I also have a moon sign. So different sign, and that's in Scorpio, if I remember correctly. So can you kind of give me a little, or give everybody here a little understanding of that? Which sign is prevalent? Is it your sun sign? Is it your moon sign? How does that kind of work with children?
Okay, so I think this is one of the areas that we really have to break down well, because it depends how familiar a person is with astrology. I find that a lot of people, they're familiar, I'm a Gemini, I'm a Taurus, with zodiac signs. In order to understand astrology, you also have to know planets, not just the zodiac signs. There's the sun, moon. In a birth chart, you have all the planets in the solar system laid out, and each planet has a different zodiac sign. Now, I know this can get a little confusing if you're not familiar. So actually, can you pull up the chart, the warrior chart, and we'll go through what the planets mean. So when you're born, like when you think of yourself as a Gemini or a Leo, that is particularly your sun sign.
Oh, hold on one second. Just give me a second. It's not showing up. Sorry, bear with me. I thought I had this. I can stop sharing this. One second. Just bear with me.
So yeah, so I'll talk a little bit about it. So basically, there is So the sign that you know that you were born with, that is your sun sign. That represents where the sun was in the solar system at that time. There's also a moon sign. Now, the sun, for example, represents who you are, your identity, your core, and your entire person. It's a big part of who you are. The moon, for example, represents just your emotions. And so your moon might be in a different sign than your sun sign. So you have they might be in the same sign. You might have two zodiac signs. Then another planet, so Mercury, represents your communication and thinking. And that might be in another different zodiac sign. And then there's Venus, and Venus is the right brain and represents, here we go. So this chart, this is one of my favorite charts. In the book, I have 75 pages of illustrations. And this is one of my favorites. So if you look at the bottom of the page, and you'll see in yellow, it says sun. And the sun is the core self, your essence, your identity, your inner adult. It makes up who you are. So in this case, the identity is a knight or a warrior, right? So that would be the sun, who you see yourself to be, the entire person. And then there's 4 other planets, and each planet represents a different part of you that makes up the entire sun. It serves the sun. So for example, we look at the red side where it says Mars, right? So that's Mars represents your instinct, your action, your energy, your drive, your will. These 5 planets are part of the 5 basic human functions. So Mars representing your instinct and actions, in this case, it's representing the sword, his hands, his legs, his physical, instinctual action. So Mars, if he has a good Mars and he's an active Mars, then he'll be a great warrior. So he's again serving the sun, the identity of the sun as a warrior. And then if you look at the other side, you have the moon. And the moon, which represents the heart, is the emotions, feelings, needs. And so the moon, in this case, as a warrior, if he's a brave warrior, if he's a courageous warrior, that's going to serve it well. If he's full of fear, right, because it's the emotions, he can have a great sword, but if he's full of fear, he's not going to make a great warrior. So he's not going to be serving the sun so well. So each part plays a role in the entire identity of the person. Then we have the top of the chart, we have the left brain and the right brain. Mercury is the left brain, which represents thinking, communication. It's your left brain, and it's also your mouth, your communication. And it's the logical and linear side of us. So for example, if this warrior is a great tactician, he knows how to set up a plan, how to attack the enemy. And if he's really intelligent and smart, that's again going to really serve the sun, his identity as a warrior, if he's really smart about how he goes doing things. And then you have the right brain, Venus, which represents intuition, values, passions. And it's also like the core of what you value, right? So it's the intuitive and creative side. So for example, if this warrior, what is he fighting for? Who is he willing to die for? How, what are his values? So Venus is going to determine his values. So every part each planet plays a different part in how we act and live our lives. And each planet can be in a different zodiac sign. So each planet can have a different flavor. One planet can be in fire. One side of us can want to be active and outgoing. And the other side of us can be in a water sign. Scorpio can be more introverted. And that's where you can have conflicting energies within a person. So all these different planets really make up the heart. This is the heart of astrology. It's planets combined with zodiac signs. And then it's not just that. Sometimes the planets can be conflicting with each other. And that's really important to understand. We have internal conflicts where our emotions and our thinking are not all in alignment. And we want to do 2 different things. And we think we have to sacrifice one or suppress one. Now, as a growing human being, if you're this warrior and you're sacrificing your Mercury, your thinking, it's going to prevent you from being a great warrior. And the same thing with us, whatever our purpose and tafkid in this world is, if we are blocking one side of us or we have a conflict and we're suppressing one side of us, we're not going to be able to flourish into the greatness of who we're meant to be. So really understanding the birth chart helps us understand every part of ourselves and see which part we're suppressing, which part needs extra attention, which part is a sensitive area. Now, when it comes to children, this is particularly important to really see what's going on with your child, the different aspects of them, what's bothering them, because they can't necessarily really speak to what their core issues, what's going on with them. And by having an understanding of where their internal conflicts are, you can really help them to blossom and really help them in the area where they might be the most vulnerable. So this chart really helps to explain and understand the core of astrology in general. Again, it's planets and zodiac signs.
That's fascinating, that chart. I know that's in the book, so it's kind of like a sneak peek to what's already in the book. So for example, again, everyone's more familiar with their sun sign. So again, I'm a Leo. I was born in August. I didn't know about all these other signs that I had with all these other planets and how they work together. And it definitely makes sense when, you look at it and you look at the birth chart. So, but when it comes to children, especially younger children, which one of those planets or zodiac signs or signs, which one's more prevalent? And kind of when does it start showing? Do they start showing their sun sign as soon as they're born? Again, my son is born May 1st and he's a Taurus. Is he showing his sun sign more? Is he going to be showing his moon sign more? Or another one?
Right. Excellent question. So if you look at that chart, right, we don't have to pull it up again, but if you saw that chart where the warrior, so the sun is his identity as a warrior. Now let's think of a 2-month-old baby. What does a 2-month old baby want? It wants to be held, it wants to be fed. It's all emotions, it's all moon. It's primarily a 2-month old baby it has no sense of self, of a greater self, what I'm here to do. So it technically doesn't enact its sun at all as a baby. Now, it's generally, you start seeing flashes of it as it starts growing, the child starts growing, but it really comes to fruition when, as you mature as an adult, that's really when you get a sense of an identity of who you are. So I would start with a child focusing on their moon. Their moon is the primary, most important part for a child. That's their feelings, that's feeling loved, taken care of, so that would be the core, would be the moon, and look at the zodiac sign of the moon, and also what other planets are interacting with the moon that might make it a sensitive area for the child.
I guess that's why using a birth chart would really help, because rather than just being like, oh, his sign is in Scorpio, his moon sign is in Scorpio, understanding how they interact with each other, that information is super helpful.
Yes, absolutely. Absolutely. You have to know more than just the zodiac sign. Again, zodiac sign is like, think of it as layers. Like it's the first layer. It's important. It's important to know it. But there's a couple of other layers that you really have to know to get the full picture.
So when does their sun sign start showing up? Again, like I'm a Leo. When would my sun sign, my Leo sign, that Leo energy, what age would that kind of start showing up if my moon sign is kind of from birth till when?
Right. So it's hard to say exactly when, but I would say you can start seeing flashes of the Leo wanting to be center stage, kind of. I don't know, 5, 6, 7, maybe. You can start seeing some of that in childhood, in a childish version of it. But it's really, it then takes a whole nother level in adulthood where you become a courageous leader and somebody who's out there to take care of your people and help people and be there for, like, really be, the center. So you can start seeing it. It starts flashing. So I don't know what percentage, 70-30, maybe 70 moon, 30% sun. You can start seeing, and people are different. It also depends what's going on in the chart. Sometimes there's a lot of strong emphasis on the sun, and so that sun might start showing up earlier. Or sometimes there's a conflict between the sun and the moon, and that's a big one. That's a really important thing to understand about a child, if they have a conflict between their sun and moon, so that also they might suppress the sun. So you'll see different people in different forms. That's why when I do a chart reading, depending on their age, I check in with them. Have they fully activated their sun? I once did a chart reading for a 23-year-old woman, and she had like 4 planets in Leo. And I was like, wow, are you a courageous leader? Are you out there? And her moon was in Scorpio. And so she was like more, as she said, no, she was quiet. She didn't feel comfortable being in the public. And so I said, look, this is something that's going to develop, that's going to grow. And like 4 years later, she called me up. She says, I'm running retreats now. I'm doing things. Now I know what you're talking about with all that Leo energy. So you really have to see where the chart is developed, because a birth chart is a promise. It's the blueprint. We don't know when you've activated different parts of it. And our entire life's purpose is to activate it at different stages in our life. We have different planets, transits that come into our lives to help us activate different parts of us. And it's basically, the chart is the blueprint. Think of it like an apple seed that has the DNA to grow into a massive apple tree. And our lifetime is a process of that tree growing. And at different stages, a major branch is going to sprout and a different aspect is going to grow. So when I see a birth chart, I can see the potential of what that entire tree looks like. And that's why I get very excited. I'm like, wow, that's amazing who this person can be. Now, where are you? What stage are you? And here are the steps, and here are the things you can do to get to that next level. And here's a little glimpse of what the entire picture looks like when you fully develop who you're meant to be.
Wow, that's so beautiful. And I think that as a parent, that's really helpful for me too, to see, because example, one of my children, I have a child, he is a Libra, and he is very fair, and he's already exhibiting his sun signs at a like really early age. You and I haven't done his birth chart yet. I'm going to do that with all my kids with you, Bezrat Hashem. But it's interesting to see that how he's already kind of going that, and his sun sign Libra is a air sign. So he's already exhibiting a lot of those like air signs already. It takes a little bit more time to direct him. in different things. And I guess that kind of leads me to another question. So as a parent, like how can you tap into your child's unique combination of those astrological strengths and those challenges, tying in their sun sign, their moon sign, their predominant element. Again, I'm not sure if anyone's familiar, but with each sign, there's a different element. We have one of the four elements: earth, water, air, and fire. So how can you use that to be able to use that combination to help a child who's, let's say, you're having a difficult time with, or you want to help them see their potential kind of get to where they need to go in the right direction?
Okay, so if you want, do you want to pull up that chart that we have on the elements?
Yes, hold on one second. I'll have you
Sure.
keep talking, and then I'm going to have to see if I can find it.
Yes, so we have, right, so there's four elements. We have air, water, fire, and earth. And again, it's really important to know all the different signs, because their sun sign might be Libra, might be an air sign. We have to check what their moon sign is. All the 5 parts that make up the different parts of us, we have to see all of them. Now, sometimes you have a person who has 4 or 5 signs in one element. So that's going to be a very big part of their makeup and of their expression and how they express themselves. So it's really important to understand the different aspects and the different parts. And again, this is one layer. The elements, actually, I tell people, if you're going to start with astrology, start with the elements, like the core prime elements, because there's only 4. Zodiac signs, there are 12 planets, there are 10, 11. There's a lot of different stuff. So start with, I started astrology finding out that I'm an air sign. I'm also a water sign, but the air sign, for example, is more of a social sign, and it's more of a curious sign. So it's learning ideas, communication. That plays a very big role for air sign people. So people who have strong air, they have a curiosity. They like to understand things. They like to talk about ideas, versus fire is all action. They're excited. They like to jump into things. They like to, will think about, act first, think later, kind of. And fire has so much energy. It's also an extroverted energy. So it needs to express that energy. And it's so important, when we have, is the chart not coming up?
Yeah, the graphics are not showing. I apologize. It was a much nicer chart. If anybody would like a copy of these charts or a picture, I can send it after the Zoom. So I apologize. It's not as beautiful as it was meant to be.
Okay. So yes. So the fire signs. So for example, I think I see this a lot. And for example, water signs, right, are emotional and sensitive and gentle. So for example, if you have a parent who's primarily a water sign, and the child is primarily a fire sign, right? So the problem becomes that the parent sees this child running around and having so much energy, and the parent is more comfortable when things are calm, speaking a low, calm tone of voice, but for the child, that's not its natural home. It doesn't feel comfortable there. Now, you can guide a child and teach him that he has to do certain things, he or her, right? However, but never teach a child that who they are is wrong, that they're wrong for being fired, that they're wrong for having this energy. You have to help them, guide them, give them opportunities to do, energetic things, play with them. That's the way to connect with them, is not through ideas. It's through the energetic taking action, doing things, being inspired kind of thing. That's their real, the energy of a fire sign. And the same thing with water or earth. Each one has a unique way of being. And yes, we all have to learn how to get along with everything and to work with everything, but never send them the message that there's something wrong with them or that they're doing things wrong. We just have to teach them how to, there are people who are sensitive to different things. You can teach them how to do it. Another aspect is, you can pull off this chart already. Another aspect is that, if there's, for example, if they have the planet Uranus, for example, connected to their Mercury, to their communication and thinking, or to their moon. So Uranus is a planet that brings a flavor and energy, and that flavor is one of being authentic, being rebellious, being true to oneself. It's important that I follow my pathway in life. So people who have very strong Uranus energy in their charts are going to be very independent people, are going to do things their way. They don't care how other people are going to think of them. They don't think what other people want of them. They need to be true to themselves. So if you have a child who has a strong Uranus energy, you can't tell this child what to do. It doesn't want to be told what to do. What you can do is give it options. So for example, would you like to clean your closet or would you like to make your bed? What do you want to do? So the child can say, okay, I want to clean my closet. So the child is making the choice. Uranus child needs to be the one making the choice. So you can guide them, you give them the options, but don't just go say, go clean your room, because that feels like they don't have choice. So by understanding who they are, you can work with them and guide them and raise them correctly with understanding those energies.
Yeah, I think that is just so important because, again, going back to my children, like what you're saying, I have a son who is an air sign and he needs to be directed very, 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 like I have to repeat myself a lot of times, but understanding that, you know, that's who he is. And then I have my daughter who I'll tell her she's an Aries, she's a fire sign. Again, I haven't learned her moon sign yet, so I'm excited to do that with you, how it's playing in. But just by going on her sun element, like she's very, very confident, very, you know, I have to direct her differently than I would my son, because the things I would do with one child doesn't work with the next. And I think all parents know that intrinsically, that each child is so unique and so special. But I feel like what you're saying is the birth chart, really understanding that is like Hashem's blueprint. It's like a unique gift saying like, here's a cheat sheet to who your child is inside, the unique makeup of this child. And so you can use this information to help them without having to go through too much trial and error and being like, wow, like my son, I just repeat myself over and over and over and over and over again. He's not listening to me. But then understanding, you know what, I'm more of a fire sign. I have that's my energy and it's competing with his air. Like I have to understand this is who he is inside, and then work with it rather than against it, or I'm going to implement this parenting method and this is the one I'm going to work with and this is the one I've learned about or heard, and it doesn't work across the board, or it doesn't work at all. Or it works for one, it doesn't work for the other. So I guess that would kind of lead me to my next question is, you know, we have this idea of nurture versus nature. If the child is raised in, like someone is Leo and they grew up in let's say a traumatic home where they had to suppress their Leo energy, if that was their moon sign or whichever it is, if their home environment was different, or maybe let's say was very outgoing and it brought out something in them that they were not naturally born with, how much of astrology in the birth chart really plays into that nurture versus nature element? If you could give us some insight.
Sure. So yes, it plays actually a very big role, and I see this a lot with charts, especially once people are older. Yes, you know, nurture can help and it can harm. You know, it sometimes, you know, if you're brought up in a home where certain things are considered negative and you're taught certain things are negative, and that's part of your chart, you're gonna suppress that in yourself. And eventually that's going to cause problems. You can't suppress a part of yourself. And also you might learn different skill sets that you don't naturally have in your chart through nurture. So, you know, it's kind of a mixed bag, but it's so key to not have a child not be who they are. That's coming back to the Vilna Gaon, darko, like really know who your child is. Because if you're trying to teach him something that you've taught all your kids and everybody's doing great with it, this child is going to suffer when you try to, you know, teach him that and put him in that box. You have to know who your child is. So absolutely, I feel like a lot of our traumas and a lot of things that we have to heal in life is because as a child, we were taught certain things. And then what happens is that voice of our parent then becomes the voice in our head. And then it's a self-defeating loop. And actually, many times you can actually see that in the chart where you're going to have these aspects growing up a certain part of you might not be fully expressed in the chart with your parents. You can see it like if somebody's born with a Saturn connected to their moon, to their emotions. So Saturn is discipline and restrictions. So sometimes that child is not going to feel emotionally supported. So when you see a child that has certain sensitive areas, you can give greater emphasis and let the child know that you're there for them. So a lot of these things you can actually see in the birth chart, the area of conflict. Like sometimes you can see where parents, sometimes I tell somebody, I can see in their chart that they got very different messages from their mother and from their father. They got very conflicting messages. And this conflict is living on with them, and they're kind of stuck in their lives because they're unable to, if they take one step one way, they feel guilty about what the other things that they've taught, and they have to learn how to bring them together and allow time for each side. Each side is an important side of them. So I can sometimes see their nurture in their chart. It's really fascinating.
Really, you can see that. Wow,
yeah.
That's amazing. Wow. You should probably help me with my childhood birth chart. That'll be spend hours doing that. But so for example, kind of like going into what you're saying. So I have a son who, again, my son, I'm just going to use my air sign son. I tried to get him to, let's say, play piano, and he was so into it and he loved it. And then all of a sudden he's like, I'm done with this and I can't do this anymore. And now I want to do chess. And I'm sorry, I kind of directed him into chess because I thought it'd be great for him. But he really wants to do soccer right now. So I'm like, I know he has the talent to do piano, and I'm like, should I be strict? Should I really kind of teach him the discipline of that? Or maybe that's not what his birth chart, his destiny is. Maybe it's not what he needs to do. Maybe he needs to do more group activities. He needs to be part of a team rather than doing something that's more individual. So I'm torn right now with, do I where the strictness where it comes in? Do I make him stay and do what he needs to do and teach him that discipline of it? Or do I, let's kind of go with where your interests are going and go that way. Does that make sense?
Absolutely. And of course, it's a very tricky, balance to figure that out. So you can definitely pick up hints in the birth chart about that, what areas is going to be their skill set. But of course, they should try everything. Kids should, explore and be able to try different things. But it's always tricky. When do you discipline them? They should stick with it. And when does it feel forced? And it's just like, so it's a very tricky thing. I remember when I was 5, 6 years old, my mother sat me down and said, no, you have to write. And I wasn't in the mood. And she just pushed me to do it. And I wrote an amazing story. And that really opened up my talent for writing and different things. So, I feel like, though, when you do, kind of push and direct them in a certain area, at some point they should be really, if they're meant to connect with it, they should really start getting excited about it. They really should show signs that they are connecting to it in some way. You got to make your own judgment how long to keep that up. But generally, just forcing kids to do things, it's not helpful to the overall growth. Really tap into what's their strength, because once they find what they are designed to do, they're gonna love it. You won't be able to pull them away from it.
Right.
And
I'm sorry.
But definitely you have to, but definitely you got to explore with kids. You definitely have to try different things, and they have to learn different skill sets and different kind of things. But the chart can give you a pretty clear picture of where the areas that they're really going to feel connected to, where they're going to feel drawn to. And there, I would say, put more emphasis and more, they should really spend time on it. And then it's going to really click at some point for them.
That's interesting. Yeah. Because again, like you were saying, your mother encouraged you to write, and then you wrote this story. My mother encouraged me to get up on stage and sing in front of 2,000 people, and I was terrified, and I was like, I can't do this. But she knew that that's something that I could do. Now that call that mother intuition or whatever. But I think using your birth chart to be like, this child is a fire sign, and there is a school play, and they're a little too scared to do it, but I'm going to encourage them in it, because the way that they were born, their energies are just like leading up to this. Like, this is like, it's, and let them try it, let them fail at it, let them feel what it is. And give them that opportunity, encourage them in that direction, rather than encouraging them to join the chess club, maybe for that child. So that's really
Right.
interesting.
Leo energy is perfect for the stage. That
Yeah.
is, they were designed for the stage. So, yeah.
That's why I'm here today.
Exactly.
Oh, we didn't ask you, what's your sun sign? Because since everyone's interested, I'd love to know.
So my sun sign is Gemini. So I'm
Wow.
primarily Gemini, and my Venus is Gemini, and Cancer. So Gemini is the ideas and concepts, and I have incredible curiosity, and I love learning, and I love teaching. And then the other side of me, my moon, my Mercury, my Mars is in Cancer. So that's more of a gentle, nurturing side. So on the one side, I have, so it's two different energies. So you have the emotional side, and then you have the intellectual, logical side. And I have to make room in my life for both. Both are very important aspects. And so we have to learn how to balance both of them and to allow both of them to shine in our lives.
Wow, that's so interesting. I see how that's helped you in your career path right now. That's really cool. I mean, as a parent, should you be learning your own birth chart first, like understanding what your born natural tendencies are, before you start getting into your child's birth chart, kind of understanding what yours are? Does it really matter?
Absolutely. I mean, so there's so many layers. First, for yourself, know who you are, know who you're meant to be, know what your gifts are. You know, so many people, I'm telling you, one of the things that I love about reading charts is when I discover a superpower in the person's chart. And I'm just like so excited to tell them when I see not just 1, 2, 3, 4 planets, outer planets, Uranus, Pluto, Saturn connecting to their Mercury, connecting to their Venus, Neptune connecting to their Venus. That's incredible creativity. That's incredible. Like, you know, and then I check in. Did you tap into? Are you doing that already? Are you doing something? If not, let's go. What are you waiting for? This is your gift. Like, you know who you are. So that's level one. I mean, on so many different levels, you know, just in terms of so many different things. So knowing who you are, knowing your internal conflicts, and it's going to affect every relationship in your life, your spouse, your husband, your wife, every interaction that you have, it's going to help you to understand who you are and who they are. And then certainly with your children, for sure, you know, you can see from your chart to besides knowing who you are and who your child is, you can also see from one chart to another. It's called a synastry chart, which connects a child's chart with a parent's chart. And you can see how you're affecting them, what areas you have very strong connections, what areas you might have some conflicting energies, and understanding that can be incredibly helpful. You know, so most people have like an average of it, but every once in a while, I just did a chart reading for a woman who was having such problems with her 4-year-old. Like whatever she tried to do, the 4-year-old instantly reacted negatively and just really, and she was at her wit's end. And I looked through the charts and it was amazing because this woman was really a powerhouse. She had 4 planets in fire sign. That's very powerful. And it was directly connecting with the child that had an inner conflict. The child had a conflict between their emotions and their thinking. And so it was already a very sensitive area. And every time the mother went to try to instruct the child, it was hitting this already internal conflict. And this was a very sensitive area. It was a Pisces area for the child. And I showed the mother in the chart that she also had a Cancer moon, and that was trining, meaning making a smooth flowing connection with the moon. So I told her, like, this one of the ways is to really don't try to instruct, don't use your fire Leo type of energy. Go to your Cancer energy, go to your nurturing energy. Just tell this child that they're loved, they're fantastic, they're super. That is the way this child will really be able to hear you and connect with you. And then you can also teach them and do these other things. But just be aware that powerful energy that you have for this child is hitting is too much. It's too this child is just too sensitive. And again, you're not doing anything wrong. The parent, you're not doing anything wrong. The child's not doing anything wrong. But understand the makeup and understand the chemistry that happens between two people. And that's so helpful to be able to see it in the chart.
That's really interesting that you can compare the two charts and understand that different thing between each other. I think yeah, that is so powerful as a parent to almost tap into your own intrinsic energies and be like, hey, you know what, again, like I've got a fire sign, I'm a Leo or Scorpio or Scorpio. I'm strong, and then be like, you know what, it's not working this way. I'm going to tap into my nurturing signs and my nurturing part of my birth chart and use that. And then sometimes that would be the actual thing that connects with yours, like a magnet almost, so to say. That's like, oh, this is the magnetic connection that works. That's powerful.
Absolutely. Absolutely.
It's so beautiful that this is, again, that this is a Jewish thing that we can do. Where have you ever heard that you can actually do this? You know, like
that's why I wrote the book. That's why I was going so crazy. Once I discovered how real and how powerful this is, I'm like, why does nobody know about this? Why is nobody talking about this? You know, we have this incredibly in Jewish tradition, right? So it's there, it's allowed, it's highly praised. And this is such a powerful tool. Why is nobody using it? I just couldn't understand, like, what is happening? So that's why I'm here, to be the ambassador for kosher astrology, to let everybody know. Look at your birth chart, see what information is out there, what you can learn. It's so amazing.
Yeah, it's just so beautiful.
I think right. It's just people don't know what you're capable of seeing in a chart. And I think once people see, I think everybody is going to be looking into their birth charts.
Yeah, you're going to be very busy reading birth charts. I loved how you wrote in your book that it said that, and I'm paraphrasing, so please don't quote me on your own words, but you were basically saying how like a building has blueprints, that each building that you see has a set of blueprints, and not only does it have blueprints for the entire building, like, okay, this is the exact measurement, but this floor is going to be smaller than this one's going to be stronger than this one because the wind gust is going to hit it at this direction. And that was such a beautiful analogy that you gave, because that really shows how, you know, this gift that Hashem put in the stars for us, this snapshot of the cosmos. I've written an article on your book, and I mentioned in there like that. I think, I'm not sure exactly where the source is, but we believe that the whole universe, the whole world was made for me. And when you think about how at the time of my birth, this snapshot of the sky, this was given to me as like a message to Hashem, a little gift, a little message, a little blueprint for me, a special guide, that if I ever get lost, like, hey, you know what? Like, I didn't just send you down here to just figure it out. I didn't just say build a building in the middle of Manhattan and like, oh, let's just hope it stands for like 100 years. So again, it's so beautiful that you're bringing this, you know, to Judaism. When it comes to like Jewish events, for example, like this is the month of Tevet, there's like that real strong energy. How does that affect you people? Let's just put birth charts aside. How does that affect our children? Are they going to be a little bit more sensitive to that energy? They're going to feel more defiant. Different astrological events. I mean, yes, today is the wolf moon, the full moon, the first full moon of the solar new year. How do those different events affect our children, or do they? Is that something that we can look at in kosher astrology as part of the months and this astrological events?
So yes, so there's two different types of energies. There's a general energy that's in the world that affects just everybody. And then there's specific energies that affects each person. So my focus is on the energy that affects each person. So for example, I can tell a person that for the next year and a half, you might have the energy of Uranus connecting with your sun or moon. And that would mean that this is a time for individuation. This is a time when maybe you had some beliefs and thoughts, but you were afraid to share because your family and friends or community would look negatively on it. And so you didn't want to speak up. Kind of like, you know, the concept of cancel culture. If you speak up, then you get canceled, right? So you believe things, but you're quiet because you don't want to mess up your life. When Uranus comes, that energy for 9 months to a year and a half comes into your life, you've had it. You feel, I need to be true to myself. To heck with the consequences. I'm going to be real. I'm going to be authentic. I'm going to speak my truth. Now, it's a very powerful, you know, energy that comes into our lives. It's an individuation energy. Like in the book, I talk about Avram Avinu, when Hashem said, Lech lecha ma'artzecha ma'ladecha, leave your land, leave your home, and I will turn you into a great nation. That was an energy of Uranus. That was symbolic of the energy of Uranus, of becoming independent. And Avram Avinu had many beliefs that went against the counterculture, very much against the times of idol worship. And he's saying there's only one God. And he suffered consequences for it. He had to battle for it. But that's a Uranus energy, authentic and rebellion. So that energy, it comes into a person's life once every 22 years. And it's really important in relationships to understand if your spouse is going to have that energy for the next year and a half, it's really important to understand what's happening, because they're going to maybe acting in ways that you're not used to them acting. And so it's really, really important to understand what energy is personally affecting you. And that's just one. There's Pluto, there's Saturn, there's Neptune. Each planet brings a unique energy and a unique part of us that's meant to blossom at that time. But because it's a new energy in our lives, it's not always so simple to handle, and it can come out in all different kinds of ways, and there's a little bit of a learning curve how to absorb it. And the idea is, once it passes, we've learned how to take in this energy, and now we make that part of our lives, and we, in a well-formed way. But in the initial time when it hits us, that's sometimes when major events happen in our lives, because we don't know what's going on. But to understand that energy, it really can help us tremendously.
Yeah, that's super helpful. Very, very helpful to know, especially when you, like you were saying, if somebody's changing their energy and they have like a big Pluto energy coming, and all of a sudden you're like, what is going on? That's definitely like very helpful information to know, and not to kind of take it personally or to kind of flow with it. I did actually have a question for you. The zodiac, or when does the zodiac new year restart? So I've seen on charts that it says like Aries is always, or Nissan is like, Aries Nissan is like the first of like the zodiac signs. But does it start on Rosh Hashanah? Like, when does that restart? When does our year restart? Is it the solar year or your birthday? When does it actually restart?
That's a great question, because it's so confusing. I'm tempted to write another book just about this.
Okay.
So it's fascinating, because everything Hashem created is so incredible. There's a micro and a macro level of it. So what you have, starting from a minute, an hour, a day, you have a process of a new beginning. Let's take a day, for example, right? The morning you wake up, it's a new beginning. There's a certain energy for the first part of the day. Morning has a certain energy. Afternoon has a different kind of energy. Evening has a different kind of energy. And then nighttime has a different energy. That's just in a day. So technically you can break it down to an hour at the beginning. But the more minute it is, the less you're going to feel it. So you have it for a day, you have it for a week. We have a beginning of a week, and a Monday energy feels very different than a Friday energy. So each week has an energy. Then every month, Rosh Chodesh, a new month, a new beginning, that's also a new energy versus the ending of an energy. So you have from a day to a week to a month, to a season. You have where Aries starts in spring, that's a whole new energy that comes in. Winter, fall, every season has a different energy. So it's all part of the same cycle. There's the same process that's happening, just the time frame starts from very, very short to very extended. And in fact, so besides that, you have the seasons, right, which is a couple of months. Then you have Rosh Hashanah, the new year, so that's a whole year. And then in astrology, you have something that's so powerful. You have a 30-year cycle. And
30?
There you have, at each changing time, at every new moon, every 7.5 years, there's a process where it's a shifting in the seasons of our lives. And literally you can see major development in people's lives based on this cycle. So when I do a chart reading, I go through where you are in your 30-year cycle and what this current energy is and what's happening for you. So there's so many different layers with astrology that's just so fascinating, and the timing of things and the energy process that happens. So so there's a lot. I'm telling you, I want to write a whole book. It's so fascinating that Hashem creates everything on a micro and a macro level. You can see the same things playing out in all these different levels and time frames.
So there's many different, I guess, new years within the cycle. I mean, we even know this, like at Chatzos, there's a different energy. Then there is at Mincha, there's different prayers because we're tapping into the energy of that. Hashem is in Chesed at this time of day. There's different energies that rule different hours of the day. So you're saying the same thing with the year.
Yeah, so I'll give you an example. Like when we think of our birthday, what's our birthday? It's the sun makes it's one rotation of the earth, 365 days around the sun. Well, guess what? Mercury takes 88 days to go around the sun. So you can have a Mercury return, or you can have Mars takes about 2 years to go around the sun. So that's your Mars birthday. Then you have Saturn, which is 29.5 years. A lot of people heard of the Saturn return. It takes 29.5 years for Saturn to come back to its place. And that's a major time of where you grow into your own authority. So every planet has its own birthday schedule. So there's many. If you love birthdays, astrology is for you. You'll have a million times to celebrate.
Oh my gosh, do not tell my children this. They will be like, okay, it's our Mars birthday now. We have like 10 birthdays every all year.
Exactly. Hanukkah is 8 days of presents. Guess what? Astrology has hundreds of days of presents.
I'd rather not know right now. No. My kids will love that. That's fascinating. It really is. So like this information, where can we get it in a kosher source? Sorry for using the phrase so fluidly, but like where can we find like permissible sources that are Jewish astrologers? For example, I know Jane Spiller wrote a book that I heard was through a man who I listened to. He gives podcasts. His name is Gedalia Fenster. He talks about her book amazingly, and I picked it up, and it was just like, wow! Like I feel like this is it's so true, and like you feel like there's emet in it, and you feel there's truth in this, and it doesn't feel like it goes against Torah. So, which astrologers out there, or which sources can we actually use to, obviously besides yourself, but just out of interest, if we're researching something, which are permissible sources?
Right. So there are a lot of great secular books, no question about it. The problem is some of them have mixed in different concepts and ideas that are not so Jewish. So look, it depends who you are and how comfortable you are of wading through. If you know what the core things are, what kosher astrology is, then you can feel more comfortable wading through and then just discarding things that don't fit with Judaism, generally speaking. But I can't tell you a particular book because every book is going to may have something. But generally, most of them, there are many really good books on astrology. So just have a good core knowledge, and then you can kind of wade through different stuff.
So you can. So it is permissible once you have that core knowledge in what kosher astrology is. You can pick up other sources and weed out what is not permissible. Like, okay, this is not.
Again, so in terms of that, different people have different comfort levels. Some people won't do that. Some people will do that. So whatever your comfortable level, whatever your rabbi is, if that's your approach to life, wherever you feel comfortable, yes. No, I mean, to me, the idea is Judaism is about having the knowledge, know what's kosher, know what's not kosher. The Rambam read all kinds of books. He wanted to understand all different things in order to know this is not kosher, this is not Jewish. So you have to know yourself. You have to know how solid you are in your Judaism, in your knowledge base, and then you can wade through things. And if you're not so solid, then don't do it. If you are, then you can feel comfortable. So yeah.
I think your book gives people a extremely solid base. If you read through the first half of the book, I don't think we didn't get into any astrology stuff really until half of the book. And I'm like, wow, like I feel like I've just had like a PhD in like kosher astrology. It was absolutely fascinating. I love how you give that, and we can use that as a source and to be able to help understand astrology, even if we hear it in the news or out there in the world. I think that's so wonderful that you have concisely put that into a book. How about like daily horoscopes? Or I feel like people are torn between those two. Let's say like my child, I'm interested in knowing what my child's daily horoscope is going to be. Is that something that we can look into? Is it not? What's your stance on that? Kosher wise, Torah kosher.
Like what? Can you read me a horoscope? Read me one. What is it? So I don't know what I've seen of it. It's hard for me to take it seriously. It just gives it just a general description. I mean, it's cute. I don't know. It's fun. I can't take it seriously from an astrological standpoint.
I've never really been into them, but I feel like that's
they're fun. They're fun to read. That's why we read them. No, when you open Tuesday's my lucky day. Ooh, I'm going to get a raise at work. Great. Like, okay, does it have any validity? I don't think so, but it's fun. Why not?
But I guess like what you're saying, and in your book, how if it's futuristic astrology, then that's not permissible. So understanding that fine line between like, okay, there's the energy of Mars this week, and you might feel it if you're sensitive to it, rather than saying on Thursday, the energy of Mars is going to give you a raise, or it's going to help your child be really great at that soccer game that they're meant to be at. So would that be correct?
Right. The issue is when they tend to get specific. And so that's a deterministic saying that this specific thing is going to happen, or this specific. astrology is an energy. If there's a Mars energy, you might feel energized. You might want to do more exercise, or you might be more easily triggered. You might lose your temper more easily. Like there's something, sometimes it's there because you're not speaking up for yourself. And finally with Mars, you have the courage to speak up for yourself. So understanding, but that's very specific to you. You can't see that in a newspaper. You have to see that in your own chart. With Mars is hitting your sun or moon, wow, you're going to feel that. So that's much more helpful to understand. It's like your personal weather. Really, it's really helpful to understand that as you go through life versus just a horoscope that's just the general thing. That, what does that mean?
Yeah, no, I think I like how you said it, like it's your personal weather system. Like it's so unique to you. If you have to go outside with an umbrella today, someone might need sunscreen. Like it's a totally different energy that people might have. Where can people get their birth chart done kosher wise? The kosher birth chart that's aligned with Torah and Jewish values. Where can we get that?
So I do offer birth chart readings on my website, kosherastro.com. What's interesting is I happen to know a number of rabbis and Torah observant people who do practice astrology, but kind of on the down low because it's been so stigmatized. So I'm hoping with my book coming out there, and more people accepting it and seeing so clearly, without a doubt, that it's kosher, that people are going to be more public, about their chart skills and abilities. And I think in the next couple of years, you're going to see more and more people talking publicly about it and offering a different chart service. I think that's going to grow a lot, hopefully.
Wow. Okay, that's really great. Well, I'm sending my 3 kids to you. I think you're going to do my husband in a few weeks, his chart reading. So we'll pass the whole mishpacha right through Kosher Astro. I guess let's open it up to questions from the audience. If you have any questions, please write them in the chat, and Yitzchak will be able to answer them. I'm going to go with one of them, and then we will choose one of the people that asked a question to win a copy of Kosher Astrology. So that's exciting. It's literally next to my bedstand. My husband has one, I have one, and we're both like writing notes and highlighting. Let's see, let's scroll up here. Did you want to choose a question? Would you like me to choose one for you?
You can choose one. Go ahead.
Okay, we'll start from the bottom one here. Is there a difference between the Hebrew calendar sign and the secular? I'm a Pisces, March 18th, but read 4th of Nisan is a different sign.
So, okay, so yes, so I get this question a lot. This is an excellent question because it's very confusing, especially people who are born kind of on the cusp. So wait, according to the English calendar, I'm this, and according to the Hebrew calendar, I'm this. So it's really important to understand that your astrological birth chart does not go according to any calendar, not the English calendar, not the Hebrew calendar. It goes according to the moment you were born. We take a snapshot of the solar system. Where were the planets in that moment? That is your birth chart. Now, I don't care what you call that day. You can call that day Tavis, hey Tavis, or you can call that day June 12th. It doesn't matter what you call it. That moment with that chart, that is what represents your energy, the moment that you're born. And it's based on where the positioning of all the planets. And that is your birth chart. So in that, it will tell you what your sun is, what zodiac sign you are. It will give you all that information. Now, the Hebrew months do have an energy, an assigned zodiac energy to them. But with the Hebrew months, how it works in general in Judaism, we follow the majority. It's not always exact. We follow the majority of the month as a certain energy. So the first, few days might be the previous. It's not an exact system. Because it goes based on the moon chart. So the general energy of each month has in Judaism energy. But if you're looking specifically about yourself, it doesn't matter the dates. It matters the exact day that you were born. What is your birth chart like? And this is a very confusing thing that I think we see many questions in the chat are asking that question.
Yeah, I think one of them was saying the relationship between the secular months and the Jewish months, and why the secular birth date is used. So I think you kind of gave an answer to that, where it's more just a snapshot of the sky and the timing of those planets, correct?
Yes, absolutely. You have to really understand where the planets were in the solar system. That's what it is. It's a capturing. I mean, this is what's so powerful, and I write about this in my book. It's a moment in time that Hashem captures the energy of the entire solar system and implants it within you, within a baby. And this baby is carrying this energy of that moment of 1978, of June 6, 1978 at 4:12 p.m. That unique energy of the universe, of the solar system, is implanted in this child. And for the next 60, 70, 80, 90 years of this person's life, they're bringing forward the energy, the potential of that moment in time for the entire world. They're here to change the world with the energy of that moment of 1978. So think about how precious every moment of time is. It doesn't just pass and gone. Thousands of millions of people are born and implanted with that energy, and they're carrying it forward for their entire lives. So no moment is ever lost. If you think about that, that's mind-boggling.
That is, I mean, I don't know why every time I think about that, I think of twins, one born like an hour, like, minutes later, and they have like different birth chart, like almost, I mean, they're very similar, but they're like, wow, this one's in this side, this one's in the other. And we can have two twins who are just like, look identical, but their personalities are just way separate. And then some are identical that way too.
So actually with twins, people ask me this all the time. Why are they so different? They're born with the same birth chart. So this is the beauty of it. So every chart can have conflicting energies in it. So a moon might have Saturn and Jupiter. So Saturn is, more authoritative, restrictive, work hard. Jupiter is more enthusiasm and excitement, play first. What happens is they both have the same chart, but one child adapts the energy of Jupiter and the other child adapts the energy of Saturn, and they look very different. But they have this exact same energy. They're just playing off different sides. And I tell them, you know what? You have to learn to use the energy of your twin too, in order to be a full person, because right now you're kind of, choosing sides within your birth chart, and your work here is to absorb the other side as well. But that's why twins are so different, even though they have the exact same birth chart.
Yeah, I have friends who are twins and they're like miles apart. They have to, I hope they're on this Zoom and hearing that. There's another question here that says, does kosher astrology reckon the hours of the day and night al pi halacha?
I'm sorry, what?
Does kosher astrology reckon the hours of the day and night al pi halacha? I guess more...
So there is such a concept. So that's a whole different topic. There is such a concept that every hour has assigned to it a planet. So in fact, Friday, the Magen Avraham brings down a Shulchan Aruch that we should not make Kiddush between 6 and 7 o'clock because it's the hour of Mars. And so you either try to do it earlier during the hour of Jupiter or wait until afterwards. So there is that's a whole different system. But it's also part of, in terms of halacha, they talk about that. But in fact, when we sing Shalom Aleichem Malachai Ashares, we welcome the angels before Kiddush on Friday night. Actually, we are singing about particular astrological angels. The Zohar brings that down, that it's talking about the energy of the planet of Mars and Jupiter, the angels from the planet of Mars and Jupiter that you're welcoming into your home, and then you're sending on your way. So there is that aspect. And in fact, today Chabad does not make Kiddush. They're very machmir on it. They do not make Kiddush between 6 and 7 on Friday nights in the evening.
Oh, I actually did not know that. Okay, that I hope that answers the question. If not, here, he was asking, the halachic hour is not 60 minutes and is important for knowing one's birth chart. Somebody over here also asked, do you have to know the exact time of birth? Is that important?
Yes. So there are a lot of different parts and pieces with astrology. So the more accurate you have a time of birth, the better it is, no question. So in the United States, it's law that every birth certificate has to have the time on it. However, many times you might have a copy where somebody reordered the birth certificate and it doesn't have the time. If you order a birth certificate from the government, you have to ask for the long form, and that will include a time of birth. So first, absolutely try to get an accurate time of birth, obviously preferred from the birth certificate. Many times moms remember very clearly exactly what time you're born, so that's also helpful. Now, in terms of a chart reading, even without a time of birth, there's incredible amounts of information. What I do is I'll make a 12 o'clock time period. So there's only Only the moon is the most sensitive to times, and like the ascendant, that's very sensitive to time. So the moon might be off by a few degrees, but everything else, the sun, Mercury, the major aspects are all going to be the same as long as we know the date of birth. So again, try to get as much information as possible in terms of accurate time of birth, but even if you don't have it, we can still work with it.
Yes, I had that problem. I'm born in Australia, and the birth certificates that from my years I was born do not have the time, and it's frustrating, and nobody remembers when I was born. But we're still able to do my chart because all my planets were very close to each other, and so you explained that to me. Yeah, that's very. I know my children's time, that's for sure. It's imprinted in my brain forever. I thought we would get this question a lot, and then here it is. Where can I go and study astrology and learn how to do birth charts?
So again, I would say start with my book. That's a good opening to really understand. I have a lot of illustrations that help you understand the different energies, the different planets. I think that's a good beginning. So I've been getting a lot of questions like that. I'm hoping a little bit down the road, maybe I can do some classes teaching astrology. Right now, I would say, books and like that's, and also get a program and start practicing looking at charts and pull your chart, your friend's chart. That's what I did in the beginning. I looked at thousands of charts of people I knew. I wanted to see, how does that play out? Or if I saw a famous person, I looked up their chart. What does their chart look like? How are they expressing themselves? So it's really about looking at a lot of charts, reading books, and classes maybe. But yeah, it's just a process of finding the right thing.
Oh yeah, I mean, after reading your book, I'm like, I want to learn everybody's birth chart. I am like totally fascinated. Here's another question here is, can you explain the halachic position on why the world is said to be the center of the universe, since the Torah is here on Earth and the planets are in specific locations that affect astrology chart? I'm going to just read through it. The story where Moshe, where the sun stood still. There's a story, I think it's in Yehoshua, where the sun stood still. There's different things. Is in astrology or in kosher astrology and Judaism, do we believe in the way that we are taught in science, that we have the way that the planets are ordered, the way that they rotate around each other, their orbit? I know that's a really deep question to ask, and you may not.
So actually, no, it's an excellent question.
Okay.
And actually, I was going to put an appendix in the book, but it kind of veered into a whole nother world. But basically, I would say the simple answer is Rav Samson Raphael Hirsch explains that when the Torah speaks, it's talking B'lashon B'nei Adam, in the language of man, from man's perspective. It is not telling you a scientific fact. So when we say that the sun stood still, from man's perspective, the sun stood still. So I'll give you an example. We know that the earth rotates around the sun and the sun doesn't move. However, when you go outside and you go, what do you say? You say, I'm going to watch the sunset. But the sun is not actually setting. We know it's the earth moving, but we don't say, I'm going to watch the earth's rotation, move away from the sun. That we say the sun rises and the sun sets, even though scientifically the sun doesn't rise, right? So it's the language of man from a human perspective. From our perspective, what does it look like? So that's what Samson Raphael Hirsch explains when the Torah says the sun stood still from human perspective. It wasn't telling you a scientific fact.
Okay, that's really interesting. Thank you for that. That was a really good question. There's another question right here. Do you look at the name of the individual and the elements? Hold on one second. Aleph of alphabet, or the zodiac element of the zodiac?
So, yeah, I mean, there is a lot of things with names. Names are very powerful, and sometimes it's connected to astrology. So I don't have expertise in that area, so I can't speak to that. So I don't talk about names in particular, but I focus primarily on the astrology part. But there is stuff to look into. It's amazing. Judaism has so many amazing, gifts and specialties to examine and study and learn about. It's really amazing.
Okay, yeah, thank you for that one. And someone asked here, they said they're going to purchase your book, and they were also asking for additional websites or places that they can go to learn about astrology? Any places that you would recommend?
So again, like what I said, I spoke about before, it's, it's a tricky issue because when you're dealing with secular non-Jewish astrology, they can bring in things that are not kosher and not, so I can't recommend them, but there are different websites that are pretty good and pretty decent. And again, if you have the discernment and the ability to, read the book, see clearly what's kosher and what's not, and you can discard the non-kosher. A lot of times they talk about mythology and they talk about different kind of things, and like, so you got to know what to kind of stay away from. But there's definitely many resources out there, but you kind of, enter at your own risk, kind of.
That's specifically why I love your book, because I picked up another book this week, and it was talking about I wasn't specifically looking for another astrology book. It was a Carl Jung book, and it was talking about astrology, and I was like, oh, this is great. And I literally had to return it back to Amazon because I was like, it's talking about mythology and other gods, and I'm just like, this is like, I don't want that in my house. I don't want that energy in my house. And he's a very well-known, very respected. We quote him in our, I've heard him quoted in Shears many times. But when you look into the details of these books, it's like, oh gosh, this doesn't feel right to me, or like learning about mythology or like this or that. And that's why I love your book, because you kind of like weed out all of that. I'm gonna say garbage and trying not to be rude, but for me, it doesn't align with my Torah values. And when you have a book that's like, I can read this and I'm not scared, I'm going to turn the page and I'm going to see like a picture, or like read something that's just like, oh, I know this is not true. Or like the universe is like 400 billion years old and we're from, apes or something. It's just so nice to have a source that I'm like, I mean, the title is in the book, Kosher Astrology. It's kosher. I can like read this. I don't have to worry or check and know that everything that in here is reliable and from a pure source. So,
yeah, actually, so very true. Absolutely. So Phyllis is asking a great question. What about the birth charts of nations and countries? Do you believe in that? So absolutely. I don't know what just happened. Yes. So absolutely. This is fascinating. In the book, I talk about the nation of Israel in 1948. Yes, every nation has a birth chart. We have an exact time and place of birth, for example, the state of Israel. And yes, you can see its nature. And I talk about how it's connected to Chiron. Israel is connected to Chiron. Chiron is the wounded healer. It's the area of our lives where we had a lot of wounding, and we're then here to help heal others because we learned how to heal ourselves. And there's no people in the world who's been more wounded than the Jewish people. And that's literally the state of Israel, especially coming after the Holocaust. So you can literally see the personality, its purpose, and also different times, different events that are happening that can be very powerful. So yes, countries, nations, everything can have a birth chart. Companies, when you start a company, I always make sure I tell people, mark the exact time of when your company became officially a business, because that is, the birth chart for your company. So absolutely. But I would tell people, like I said, the thing with astrology is there's so much overload of information. There's so much information. Start slow. Start with your own personal birth chart, depending where you are in your process of learning about astrology. If you're new, but if you're, somebody, a veteran, you've been involved in astrology, absolutely. It's fascinating to see the charts of countries. There's something called mundane astrology. We can learn about major world events that are happening. In fact, I have 2 chapters in my book that I absolutely love. I'm biased, fine, sue me. But where I talk about the discovery of the planets. In 1781, Uranus was discovered. In 1846, Neptune was discovered. And it brought with it events in this world that never before happened in history, that literally changed the flow of history, that changed us. We are who we are today is because of the events that took place when those planets were discovered, and the particular energy. For example, Uranus is about independence and rebellion, and it was discovered in 1781. What was happening in 1781? The United States, the Declaration of Independence. We fought against the British. We became a country. And what was our country all about? about individual rights. We have a Bill of Rights. We have a Constitution. All of these things about protecting individual rights. That's what Uranus is about. That's the energy of Uranus. And then you have with Neptune. Neptune is about connecting the collective, and that's when the telegram was invented. That's when roads and the steam trains, all of these things that connected humanity in a way that was never possible before. That came in when Neptune was discovered. And you see again with Pluto and Chiron, all of these planets. There's 2 chapters in the book that I did incredible amounts of research. It was really incredible. And in fact, I want to write another book. There's so much more information about what it brought into it. So yes, astrology is deeply connected to every part of our lives on a personal level, on a city-state level, and a world level. It's just incredible. That's what they all say. The Ramchal, the Ramah, Hashem directs the world through astrology across the board. All of our rabbis say that. Majority of rabbis say this explicitly and clearly, that Hashem directs the world through astrology, and you can blatantly see it. That's what I love about it. Like I tell everybody, check for yourself. Don't take anybody's word for it. You can see this yourself. That's why I wanted, when I do a chart reading, I show them a person how to read your own chart. It's not me telling you things. I'm not doing heebie-jeebie telling you. I'm showing you where in your chart, where it's connecting, where your Mercury communication, where your skill sets are. I show you the specific planets that you can look up anywhere. It's there. It's out there.
That's so funny. And it's so true because, I was thinking about it. I think the last year someone was saying, they're saying Mazel Tov, like you're literally saying, may the stars be good for you. Like we say it all the time, Mazel Tov, like may you have good astrology energy towards you. Like we're praying for that. And we don't even think about it. Like when we say it, we just say it so off the cuff, but we're literally like blessing people. Like, may you have good energy, good mazal from the stars. And it's just,
absolutely. A huge part of Jewish tradition on every major occasion. What do we say? Mazel Tov. When we do Kiddush Levana, we do the blessing on the moon every month, right? We say in the blessing that humans should be renewed. Just like the moon renews itself, we should be renewed. That's literally an astrological concept. Literally, if you do Kiddush Levana, you are de facto practicing astrology. And in fact, in Kiddush Levana, you actually say, Siman Tov and Mazel Tov Yehei Lanu L'Chol Yisrael Amen. It should be a great sign and a great astrological sign for us, a positive astrological sign for us and for the whole Jewish nation. So it's baked into Judaism.
It's amazing how, it's baked in, and we're now being able to see it. And I think this next question kind of goes into that. How do you reconcile the discoveries of new astrological entities such as Chiron, or that Pluto was downgraded to a dwarf planet? And I'm going to let you answer this, but I read in your book that like when new things are happening in the world, that new planets were discovered, new energies. And so, we're getting closer and closer to the times of Mashiach, and you're starting to see that there's this new consciousness of people that they're open to these new concepts. But anyways, if you could answer that question about, the discovery of the new astrological entities and the dwarf planet being downgraded.
So a good example is Chiron. Chiron was discovered in 1976. And, they didn't know if they discovered a new planet or not. So Chiron is between Saturn and Uranus. So it's relatively really close to us. And so it's considered an asteroid or a minor planet. It doesn't have the designation of planet. And if you look in my book, I talk about in 1976, certain kinds of new energy, alternative medicine started growing, all different kinds of things that are connected to wounding and healing and holistic health. So Chiron, this is a new energy that came into the world that became part of the norm. That's when we started making organizations for holistic healing. A few years later, the United States government opened up an office for alternative medicine. That's when it became an established thing. And today we're very conscious of it and aware of it. So yes, now the thing is, there are many, many asteroids. And this is where, again, I'm a big believer in keeping it simple, because, if I filled up a chart, right now I put 10 or 11 planets in that circle in a chart. If I filled it up with all the asteroids, the entire chart would be black. There are that many, and it's just overwhelming. So my focus is on the primary planets in the solar system. Those are the core things that I focus on, and it has more than enough energy and more than enough information to keep you fully covered. But yes, if you ask me, does Vulcan and all these different kind of asteroids, do they have something? Yes, but I think you're going to get lost if you really get into all of it. So I would say focus on the 10 or 11 planets that everybody's well aware of. And in terms of Pluto, I think it's an incredible injustice to turn Pluto. In the book I talk about it, actually. Pluto is the planet of death and rebirth, of a caterpillar. A caterpillar, you tell a caterpillar that you can fly. And the caterpillar says, what are you talking about? I need 28 legs just to walk. I can't fly. And it goes through a process, a transformative process, and it turns into a butterfly, right? So that's a Plutonian process. That's what Pluto is. That's when we have Pluto in our lives, we go through massive transformations, and then it's incredibly empowering. But it's a death and a rebirth. So Pluto was discovered in 1930, and it was considered a planet until 2005 or 2006. Basically, for 76 years, it was considered a planet, and then it was removed from being a planet. So it actually had a birth and a death. The average human lifespan, like if an American male in the United States, is exactly 76 years. So Pluto lived as a planet for the human lifespan. It had a death and a rebirth in a way. So I thought that's funny in symbolic sense. But yes, it doesn't matter if you remove it, what you call the planet. It's still there. It's still every 248 years makes a cycle. When it connects with your sun, it's going to be one of the most powerful, transformative times of your life. It happens only once every 40 to 60 years that Pluto is going to connect with your sun or moon. And there's going to be huge shifts and changes in your life. It's such a powerful, transformative time in a person's life.
Wow, thank you for that. That was, yes, Pluto. I'm very sad that Pluto has not been given the energy that it has. But it's interesting to see again because of its birth and redeath, and how that actually affects us in our own birth chart. Another question here was, and I believe that I have heard this one before, and you may have as well. And you obviously are the expert here. Do you think the planets are types of angels?
So that's an excellent question. So Kabbalistically, so there's Rebbe Eliezer of Worms. He's also known as Rebbe Eliezer of Garmiza. He lived in the 1200s, something like that. And he was a huge expert on Kabbalah. He wrote a commentary on Sefer Yetzirah. And he explains that Hashem created an angel for every planet and assigned an angel to every planet, and every zodiac sign has an angel and a planet. And in my book, I list the specific angels that he lists that Michal, for example, I don't remember the specific, let's say it's to Jupiter. Like there is a name of an angel that is assigned. And the Ramban writes, this is also very powerful. We say this in davening, that by calling the names, he said he called each one by name. This is in Tehillim. It says that Hashem called each planet by name. And the Ramban explains by calling them by name is assigning them the power. So this is the power of Mars. This is the power of Jupiter. So yes, Kabbalistically, Hashem created angels, which have the power of each planet and assigned one to each planet. And therefore, so it's angel astrology you can consider it angels, astrological energies helping you to. I mean, the biggest thing is Bereshis Rabbah, which says that Hashem, there is. Rabbi Simon says that there is no blade of grass that does not have an astrological energy in the heavens urging it to grow. And it's the same thing with humans. If a blade of grass has that, every human has astrological energies urging us to grow. And that's what the charts, that's what the different transits, the energies that come into our lives, it's all about our growth. And so, yes, you consider them angels also, yes.
Yeah, I mean, if every blade of grass has an angel directing it, every planet, every part of that planet has to as well. Here's a really interesting question. I think we'll let you go after this. What was your most interesting find when studying astrology?
Wow, I don't know where. I'm sorry, we need another 4 hours. Can you pause because that question requires at least 4 more hours.
Let's see your favorite top two. What was it?
Like I don't even know where to begin. There's just so many things that blew me away. I'll give you an example. When So there's something in the book I talk about called pivotal periods. We have 7 of them when we take major leaps in our development, and we have 7 of them throughout our lifetime. And one of them is when the progressed sun connects with Neptune. And Neptune is about elevation, about dreams coming true. It's about spirituality. It's about idealism. It's very idealistic energy. And it's also about connecting with the collective. You're tapping into something that people want to hear. And I was just blown away when I looked at Martin Luther King in 1963 or 68, gave his I Have a Dream speech. Now, this speech is one of the most famous speeches in American history. And what was the speech? I have a dream that one day my children will be judged not by the color of the skin, but by the content of their character. So it's an incredible idealistic speech that resonated, he gave this during his once in a lifetime Sun Neptune progression pivotal period that he had, and I was like blown away by that. And I like try to look throughout history, when who is it who stepped on the moon, who said one small step for man, one giant leap for mankind?
Or the other one, sorry.
Right. So when he said that also, so he has in his birth chart, he was born with Mercury connected to Neptune. So he had a message to share with the entire world. And that was, again, a message that resonated. Anything that has a huge impact in this world, I love looking at the astrological details, and I'm blown away when I see what it is. So there's many things like that I'm constantly blown away by. And like I said, I can talk about for hours.
Oh gosh. Well, we could totally rack your brain, and I'm sure everybody here would just love to hear all the things that fascinate you about astrology. I mean, I want to ask you crazy questions about somebody's asking here about aliens and UFOs and new planets are going to be discovered and are there, and we won't get you down that rabbit hole, but I memean, it's just so fascinating because it's so unknown and there's so much information that we don't know, but yet what your book says, and I'm not paid to say this at all. I'm a huge fan, and it's really helped open my eyes, that all this information that is out there, there's so much, and so much of it is being able to use in a Torah way, in alignment with our religion, in alignment with, everything that we've been taught, and it doesn't contradict it. And that is huge. It's almost like stumbling upon a new part of our religion that we never knew that existed. So that's how it feels like to me. I think it's wonderful. And it's just so beautiful that everybody can access it, and having, the right guides and the right sources, and very, very, we're very lucky that Hashem has blessed you with this knowledge to bring it to the world. So I think I speak for everybody here saying thank you so much for doing that for us and for bringing this information to the world. And thank you for tonight. This has been such an eye-opener, and I've learned so many different things about how to parent my own children, that I am going to be using once we do our birth chart, and just in general, I'm learning things about myself, how to implement my strengths, and my challenges with my own children's unique personalities. So before everybody goes, I would love to have you give away a copy of your book, which you so generously said that you would love to do. So how are we going to do this? I think we're going to, I'm going to scroll up. I saw this down on a Zoom once. I'm going to scroll up and you will say stop. So, and then whoever's name we stop on, unless it's my husband, because he already has a copy, will go. Ready? 1, 2, 3, go.
Stop.
DM. This is you. Congratulations, DM. I am going to message you directly. You won a book. Yay.
Yes, and you just won a copy of this. And the book is available on kosherastro.com or on amazon.com. And thank you so much, Ayala. I really appreciate everything that you put into this, and the interview, and all the questions, and all the time. I really greatly appreciate it. Thank you so much.
Thank you so much. And I'm going to just leave my phone number here, my email in the chat, which is okababycompany@gmail.com. So please send me a message so I can connect you with Yitzchak and get you the book. And thank you again so much. And this will be recorded and it'll be on my website and also be probably on yours too. So we'll send the links out. Follow us on Instagram if you want to be able to have a to watch this again and share this with your friends and family. And again, thank you so much. And Hashem should bless you in everything that you're doing and for bringing this information into the world. It has been so helpful. And I think everyone, I can attest for everybody, just being very grateful that we have your knowledge that Hashem has given you to help us in such a beautiful way. So thank you again. And thank you again for your time. It's been wonderful.
My pleasure. Thank you so much.